Fellow rebels, here in the dungeon with me today is another member of the OG Rebellion. She is the second of the big three, the inheritor of the rebellion. She's the one who brought her character up from the shadows of obscurity to a place of instant recognition and fame within the RP. And she did it all by being an outrageously good person. People of the Grounded Dungeon, I give you Chief Gray.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, so Gray, thank you for joining me in my cell today.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
Wonderful. So I just have usually how the interview goes. I have a list of basic questions, and what happens after I ask a few of them is that conversations tend to roll out from there, and just any comment, any question, anything that comes to your mind at all, we'll address it. But for the time being, I figure I usually start with, how did this all start for you? What is your BotGD story?
Okay. This is a good one. So BotGD started when I was in my senior year of college, and I had been on Tumblr for about a year at that point. And I was kind of like the quiet member of the fandom. Like, I would post things occasionally. And I remember just ever since How to Train Your Dragon 2 came out, like, my dashboard was full of Dead Stoic jokes.
Of course.
And and of course, you know, I think like people started grounding everybody, like, grounded, and me not really getting what was going on. I started thinking that this was some dramatic fandom war that was happening. And I was just like, nope, want no part of this. No, just let it happen, you know, just step back, let it do its own thing. And then sure enough, when it first started, I think I saw when Tree basically got an ask from Haddock that he was breaking out of the dungeon. And my dashboard just exploded. Like, it was full of, you know, everybody RPing. I'm just like, what the heck is going on?
It was.
Good. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking. It's like it always seems to be a common thread that singular event of the ask getting sent, with how everyone was breaking out, was kind of like everyone getting up in the middle of the night, opening the window, and being like, "Huh, the sun's already up," before an immediate nuclear blast just wipes out the entire area.
Pretty much. And I think I was following Haddock for his analysis at that point, that he wrote for How to Train Your Dragon 2. So I kind of saw things from his blog. I didn't see much of everyone else's, but and then I guess at first I was just like, oh, this looks so stupid. Like, okay, whatever, all right.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, I know, right? The famous last words. And finally, I guess a couple of nights later, I was just like, I guess I got back from church or something, and I was just like, I was looking on my Tumblr, and I saw that it was still going on. And I was just like, you know what, this actually looks kind of fun. I haven't RP'd before, so maybe this would be a good chance to try it out. So I messaged Haddock, like I sent him an ask I think it was to the BOTG blog that he set up. And I was just like, hey, can I join this? Like, is it too late to join? And he was like, nah, come on in. And sure enough, here I am.
That is hysterical.
Yeah.
That back then you were like, man, this looks dumb. And like, what, a year or two later, you're the literal leader of the rebellion?
Yeah. Famous last words.
Famous last words. Because it's like, and what goes even further is that I do have to bring this up early, because it's one of my favorite things. So BotGD went on a very long hiatus after the formal completion of the story, which then opened us up to just like more relaxed and freelance RP, because the story that had captivated everyone's minds had a formal end chapter, but that didn't necessarily mean that it was all over. Now,
Right.
I know that I took a huge break. Like, I wasn't even on Tumblr um, during a lot of that time. But what I do remember seeing is that if anyone was still putting out BOTGD content, it was you. And I think that
Yeah.
there was a time where it was just you getting a hold of usually Seasick or Asha, and just, it didn't matter what it was, but you were doing stuff. It was almost like if BOTGD was someone who had gone into hibernation, it was like you were the heart that just kept beating.
Yeah, I think like Seasick and I, we just kept going for, I want to say it was about a year. Like we were just doing EU threading with our kids. Like we started shipping Gray's daughter Dagny and Seasick's son Havelock, and we started giving them a story, and it was just, I don't know. It's just we both didn't really want it to end. We were just like, let's just keep this going. Let's just do crazy threading. We'll give Gray and Seasick's friendship a little bit more development, and occasionally after a while, we decided, let's just take a break. But yeah, it was fun. I just didn't want it to end. Like I was so upset when we finally ended it, but I was just but it was so much fun getting to do like freelance RPing for a while. Give Gray a chance to flourish a little bit more.
For sure. And I've noticed that it's like and the other thing I tend to notice from that is that was really a great combination, because in BOTGD2, what we're doing right now, it seems like everyone's a lot more relaxed with how the story's going, what their character's doing, and everyone is seeming to be a little more experimental. Like, I've had several moments just on my own where I'll be, like, talking about a thread idea I want to do with someone, and it'll reach a point where I go, wait, I don't actually want to know how this is going to go, let's just go thread it out. And that was something that wasn't happening as much in the latter days of Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. And so I think... Season 1. Oh my god! Part 1! But to have the moment where, we had a final battle, and yeah, everyone could breathe easy, but also, like you said, it was also sad that it felt over. But by seeing you continuing to roleplay, continuing to get into just extended family, extended universe, extended this, that, and the other thing, even though I wasn't doing that, just from my perspective, it always warmed my heart, because it always felt like the RP was still alive and that other people were still doing stuff. So it never ever felt gone or truly over, because I could always see the threads that you and Seasick in particular were doing.
Aw. Well, that's good to know.
Just wanted to share that.
I will admit, there were times where I was thinking like it was annoying to everybody who wasn't doing it anymore, but that makes me feel better, so I appreciate it.
I mean, we could seek out other people's perspectives, but I seriously doubt anyone didn't get a warm feeling in their chest when they saw that BOTGD was still happening, except perhaps the very, very confused people who had no idea what it was from the get-go and still have no idea what it is.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were just scratching their heads like, what the heck?
Oh,
what is this?
Gotta be some of the best. Gotta be one of the best parts of this is the confusion of a lot of people.
Messaging Haddock on the blog, like, what are you guys doing?
Yes.
And then, of course, you got the comments on Tree's video, the animation.
Yes. Oh, and what... Oh, man, I gotta not go into that conversation right now, because I could talk about that video in every single interview. Every time.
I will just say this. I'm really glad you stepped in and started making those comments, like answering people's questions, because I was just like... No.
Well, you know how, like, you'll have moments where, like, you're on YouTube, and you'll see someone who has, like, the name of a character. It's not, Darth Vader 4710. It's straight up Darth Vader, like, for example. And you know that someone snagged an old username and got super lucky. That was kind of my thought behind it. I'm like, no one else is gonna make a YouTube channel called Stonegate Elmas. I got this.
It's a pretty one of a kind.
Yeah. So moving on to question 2. Did you ever imagine you'd end up where you did in the story and in the group as a Mun? And if not, what did you think would happen when you started all this?
I honestly did not. I can tell you for sure, I did not imagine Gray eventually becoming second in command to the king and eventually leading the rebellion herself. I don't know. I kind of always had this feeling that she would just be a background character, like someone who would occasionally interject into the story and do her thing, and then the rest of the focus would be on everyone else. Like I never want like. I think it was when Stonegate comes back in season 3 and basically recommends to Haddock, like, oh yeah, you should promote Gray, like,
The one sane idea he
Gray.
had that year.
Yeah. And I remember reading that, like, wait, what? Oh, she could be promoted? Wait, what? Like, okay, let's just see where this goes. And I think that it was at that point where I finally saw that, okay, she's actually going to have a story now. She's actually going to have a character arc. This is going to be a lot of fun.
That is, and it just like there was always like I said, an element of consistency where you solidified yourself in a group as kind of like this. At least for me, it was kind of like a nice concrete foundation where no matter what kind of crazy stuff happened above, our feet could always land on somewhere solid with your character, because so many of the characters lost their minds, like literally lost their minds. Haddock was struggling being a sociopath. Stonegate lost his soul and was also just by nature a murderous little shit. Aki had that whole thing with Dust and everything that was tumbling around in her mind. Clover was dealing with trauma. Tez was dealing with a split mind and also trauma. It's like everyone had a hard story, including you and everything like that. Everyone had their challenges, but Gray stuck out as a character that actually kept her shit together while still having a unique character arc.
She was like one of the most level-headed characters in the RP. Like, she was just, I don't know, I think part of it is because I didn't really know how to write that dark stuff at the time. Like, she had dark stuff that happened to her, but I never really knew how to write that, but I was just like, oh, yeah, that's actually kind of a good thing, because, like, I could have her be level-headed. This is someone who, had dark stuff happen to her, but she knew how to, not necessarily push it down, but just keep it together. Like, she knew how to, okay, I can't think about this right now. I gotta focus. I got other people to worry about here. I can't, I gotta keep going. Like, I just gotta keep my head together.
And normally something like...
And I think it also...
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I'm sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
think it also helped that, like, I wrote her as having a strong family background. Like, she has her parents, and I think it also helped that I wrote her as having, like, a strong family background, so that kind of helped her a little bit, like, knowing that she had a family to go home to after this was over.
That is actually really unique, because a lot of people in the rebellion lost their parents, or like in Stonegate's or Blunt's case, they went away from their parents for their own reason or their own challenges, but it wasn't necessarily a I can just go back situation. And so very cool that Gray has that, because it flips the script. I still stand by the statement of, I made it in a comic the one time, it's like, hey, don't beat yourselves up because everyone has a tragic backstory. We are a bunch of teenagers who were thrown in a dungeon by an evil nation. It's like,
you're kind of allowed to...
It's like everyone's already got a tragic backstory. The reason you ended up in that dungeon, everyone can have that because you're already there. But Gray flipped the script in the sense where she didn't have that. And no, there's a car alarm going off. Don't do this. Okay, and we're back. Gray didn't have that. And she had a completely different background, and she had a set of characteristics that in the hands of anyone else, like I said in the introduction, would have faded into obscurity. Everyone was getting into fights and yelling and screaming and going mad. But then Gray, as this quiet person who's actually holding stuff together, is the one who comes up into the spotlight. And I love that about the character in the story.
Yeah, I loved it too. Like the way it just, I don't know what it was. It was just she came alive and she did her own thing. And she, I was even worried that at one point that she would come across as too perfect to others. But, you guys always said like, that's not the case. Like, and, she's done her stupid mistakes too. Like she's done some stupid stuff. But I'm glad that like she got to make her way to the top without coming across as like a Mary Sue or something.
And I think that was like 100% with the authenticity in which you RP'd. Because Gray got her ass kicked plenty of times.
Oof, yeah.
And that's the one thing people don't do when they're writing a Mary Sue. Gray has lost an argument plenty of times, and Gray has been verbally ripped to shreds plenty of times. And the reason that, and I think that's why, like, even though Gray didn't have big glaring flaws in the main series, but we get, a little more of inkling of what her flaws are, like with her pride and everything in Battle of the Grounded Dungeon 2, is because she developed honestly. Her shortcomings did not have to be showcased because everything good about her was being shown in small increments throughout the first story. So no, definitely never came across as too perfect. Just as a character where I had to sit back and go, alright, this person doesn't have a glaring flaw, but I'm not necessarily worried about finding one. Because I'm still in the process of trying to find out all the good stuff about this character.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of it like that.
Because like a lot of Mary Sue's, they're like, here's my character, here's why they're perfect. And instead you were like, here's my character, let's see what happens.
Exactly.
So, what was your reaction? This is question 3. So, what's your reaction when BotGD became as big as it was? As in, like,
oh my God.
Like today, like we have the video, the wiki, the Discord chat, the people on Tumblr, a multitude, like 100,000 people scratching their heads and going, "What the fuck is this?"
I have to say, at first it was shock, because when this first started, like, I honestly didn't think it was going to be as big as it was. I thought, oh, this will probably just last for a couple days, and then, it'll be over, whatever. But then, like, I have to say it was around the time Tree put the wiki together, where I was like, oh, wait, this is not just some stupid RP. This is a freaking experience. Like, this is probably never going to happen again for a lot. I mean, I say that as we're doing a sequel to this. But this is probably never going to happen again. Like, we may come back and, like, occasionally do threading, or if we decide to do a third one, that'll be even more impressive. But, yeah, I just can't see, like, anybody else, like, trying to coming together, and it wasn't even planned. Like, we just started yelling at each other, and it just happened. So, I don't know, I'm just freaking amazed that it happened the way it did, and we've held on for so long. It's just, like I said, it's an experience. Like, it's, and I'm really glad it happened the way it did.
For sure. And just like on a little bit of a note of trivia, when I was going through how much art we have over 1,000 pieces of art for Battle of the Grounded Dungeon. I think it's somewhere around like 1,200 pieces of art. And one, I think the top contributor of just who cranked out the most was Tree, but following in as a close second was actually you. You had some of the largest selection of just character sketches, where it's like it did not matter who the character was, you were there getting a sketch done of them. And it was great because it basically created a portrait of almost every single muse that we have in the story. And I thought you should know that, and that was pretty neat.
Aw, thank you.
So I was
Like,
looking at the numbers, and I'm like, wow, Gray has a lot here.
I honestly did not. I had a feeling I drew a lot because I just love drawing, but I didn't know like I was the close second. Like I always thought like Tree was the one who just keep, bringing out the art, like posting the art, and I barely came close to her. Like I just loved like and we did that whole thing. Oh God, when was it? There was one time over one of the summers. It was after the story ended, and I think it was when Haddock was trying to put the art book together, and we realized we didn't have enough sketches for everybody. So like that whole month, I just kept like, I was like, oh man, I gotta draw. I gotta draw everybody. I was looking for references, like anything that could help me, and I was just kept posting. I was like, no, I gotta do this. Everybody's gotta have a drawing.
Oh.
It was yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun too, because like there were some characters where there are some characters I had kind of didn't really remember, and it was fun to like go back and see like, oh yeah, this character was in this season, or oh, I forgot about that character. Okay, let's give them a drawing. Okay, so it was nice to get. It was nice to. It was a way. It was nice to like go back and like draw everybody. Get an idea of what the muses looked like, and we had like a diverse group of muses. Like everybody looked so different. It was amazing. Like people were so creative.
It was awesome. Like and I remember going through those sketches. I could almost every single time I could be like, okay, that's so and so, and that's so and so, because of everyone took the time to make sure that there was something unique that had their character stick out. Which I loved, and that kind of leads into question 4, which is like what inspired your character, both in look and how they initially presented themselves, and as that developed, what eventually motivated them into what they are now.
Let's see. First Gray's physical look. I kind of based it off Astrid from How to Train Your Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a little bit after I first joined. People were starting to post pictures of their characters, and I was like, okay, I gotta find. I was like, okay, I gotta try this out. Like, but I had nothing to go on for this. Like, I'm literally going in blind here as to what she looks like. So I'm just like, you know what? Let me see if I can find a picture of Astrid. And I kind of just drew her up one day. Like, I don't know if you saw Gray's wiki page, but the picture that I used for her profile, that was my very first drawing of her.
Oh, wait.
That was the very first.
Now, my computer's actually up, and I want to see this, because I have the wiki page saved in bookmarks.
Okay.
So we are going to have a look at the very first picture of Gray. Okay. So that was your first, this is the first ever drawing of Gray.
Yeah, that was the very first one. I was like, I kind of wanted her to be a little bit like me, like, give her the brown hair, brown eyes, so that's where that came from. And then the headband was inspired, and the shoulder pads were inspired by Astrid. And her red and blue skirt, like, I was just like, let me flip-flop, let me flip-flop that. So, and
okay.
Yeah, so I was just like, so, it's not, and you'll see some comments on the animation, like, some people said she looked like Astrid, and I was just like, oh, well, okay, glad you picked up on that, because that's actually where she came from.
Perfect!
Yeah, you nailed it. Good job. So, and then as for her personality, like, when I first started, I was kind of thinking, like, okay, I want her to be someone people can look up to. Like, I wanted her to be confident, but not cocky, nice, but not a good at two shoes. And that's, and I kind of just ran with that. I, wanted her, I tried to frame her as, like, this good person, someone who, like we said, has a good head on their shoulders, and someone people can look at as like, okay, she's got the level head. She knows what's going on. Like, okay, we can take it easy now.
Right, right. It was always kind of a relief when Grace decided to step in and try to simmer something down.
Sometimes it didn't work.
That actually reminds me of it reminds me of the scene with where Stonegate had just lost his soul, but it was before anyone knew what was going on. And I think it was like Gray and Stonegate's first confrontation. I think you actually made a drawing of this too.
Yes, I did.
Where it was like it was kind of like the first time that Gray's reasonableness didn't at least have some kind of effect, and it was because she was literally working with someone who had a shredded soul.
Right.
Because like, honestly, looking at the scene, if Stonegate had had his actual ability to emotionally heal or his wits about him, that would have worked. Gray would have been able to get somewhere with him. It wouldn't have fixed everything, I don't think, but she would have been able to get somewhere with him. So it was really hard when I was role-playing that scene, because, like, Gray would say something, and I just sat there and I'd go, like, well, I know what I want to type now. I know what I would do as someone who was struggling. I would listen, I would give an inch, and then I'm like, nope, but if I'm staying true to character, this guy's not gonna budge. So it was kind of weird writing it. Because it was very much clashing against something that would have normally worked, and that's not how I'm used to writing. Usually when I write, the character and I's interests are kind of flowing in the same direction.
Right. I think for me it was weird too, because normally, like, when I confront somebody, like, I tend to get a little, like, I'm not like that. Like, I don't do what Gray usually does. Like, when I was typing, I think it was that one line where she says, like, oh, I saw who killed King Hattigan. It wasn't Sky, like, because Sky was in that scene too.
Yeah.
It wasn't Sky, and she was looking right at Stonegate.
Oh, yeah.
So I was just like,
that line.
Yeah, that line. And I just remember being like, oh man, I shouldn't say this. Like, but then of course, Gray like took the wheel and was like, no, she's got to say it. She's got to say it. And I just felt so bad because I was thinking that people were going to get mad, but I was just like, but then the reaction, I was just like, oh, okay, all right. This is something she would do. She would tell people how it is.
Yeah.
That scene was a lot of fun.
That's like, at that comment, like, I think in the scene, Stone is just like, yeah, that's right, I know that I did it and all that stuff. But that hit him like a clap of ice water. And honestly, I think that was the moment where I think that's actually where she would have gotten through to him. Because if he had his mind, he would have been like, yeah, I killed him, but wait, shut the fuck up. It's like, wait, I didn't actually do it. I didn't actually kill. What is wrong with you? I was like, a Valkyrie got her hands on me. She made me do it. Why would you say that? It would start with, yeah, I know, I'm the one who killed him, and then quickly turn into anger where it's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? Why would you say that?
Well...
And that was the unfortunate part, because it's like that he couldn't have that reaction. He couldn't have the reaction of, this isn't actually my fault. Because the whole point of that character arc at that point was kind of between Tree and Stonegate and Aki. It was the whole point of, we've got to stop blaming people for stuff that's not their fault.
Right. And I think that's what made it... the way the scene went, I think that made it even more interesting because, like you said, Stonegate was already partly gone at that point. So he didn't have the mindset to realize that wasn't his fault. And I bet you if he had, and he reacted the way, he would have, like, with that, like, wait, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Gray would have been like, oh, wait, sorry.
Right.
Totally
Yeah.
didn't mean it like that.
There would have been a moment of more snapping to reality, but I guess that's some intense alternate universe stuff right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's just kind of stop everything that happened in season 3 with one conversation.
Yep, Grace, everybody. She got through the stone good.
Scene.
Yep, all done. Happy ending.
So Haddock can wander into camp possessed later when there's not a disaster going on.
And he's just like, oh, and, and he's just like, oh, well, okay, I guess, alright.
And my character could be like, hi, I'm trying to do my best right now getting over your tragic death instead of murdering people. What are you doing?
And Greg could just be like, yeah, I got through to him. I talked to him.
It worked.
Good. We're all good. We're good.
There you go. And this conversation leads into the next section for a wide assortment of characters, I'm sure. What are the relationship dynamics with other muses that has the good, the bad, and the intriguing for you? What are the ones that just pop in your mind? What are the ones you want to talk about, basically?
Oh gosh, there were so many. Like, I did like these full-on relationship analyses of Gray's relationships with her closest friends, the Boomerang Squad, Seasick, and of course Haddock and Nala. I don't know. I feel like I guess the first one that pops into my mind, the first ones that pop into my mind are Gray and Haddock, and Gray and Seasick. Because Gray and Seasick, like, I said this in my freaking novel about it. I said, this is kind of like the first friendship where Gray doesn't necessarily play a role. Because when you think about it, the Boomerang Squad, she's kind of this big sister figure. Like, she's, kind of tries to keep them in line, and of course she's, trying to be there for Asha. She's taking care of her. And then you look at Gray's relationship with Haddock, and, they're friends, but, like, they don't start out that way. But there's, like, this boundary of employee-boss that Gray doesn't necessarily cross. So with Seasick, it was kind of like a comfort for her. Like, it kept her grounded. And, of course, her relationship with Shadow, but this was, like, her first human friend in a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helped her keep her wits about her, because it's like, okay, I have this other person, we're the exact same age, we have common interests, she's just a really good friend, someone who I could talk to if I need to vent or something. And then, like I said, you have Gray and Haddock, who, of course, like, I was thinking about this when I was writing my relationship analysis of them. Like, normally, like, you would not see them being as close as they are in the end of the rebellion.
Right.
And there's, like, this boundary of employee, boss, but they just click. Like, they just click together. Like, Haddock and I think it was in the second season, we said, like, they haven't interacted enough. We got to have them interact more. And finally Gray got promoted in season 4, which helped a lot, and you could kind of see her being his voice of reason.
Yes.
Like, I remember there's one scene after Portal was attacked by Orskov, and, Haddock, of course, got injured, and Gray and Mira are basically Mira's trying to get him to take it easy, settle down, and Gray kind of steps in like, hey, dude, like, I'm your second in command. Like, let me handle this. You take it easy. Like, you gotta sit down. You may be the king, but you gotta take care of yourself first, man. Like,
yeah.
Just, it's okay. I got this.
It truly brought how her level-headedness and how her consistency and being the voice of reason came to fruition by being that second in command, someone that the king would actually listen to, because that was something that just did not happen. Haddock did not listen to many people at all, but there were also many people that did not communicate with him the way that they needed to in order for it to happen.
Right.
But Gray had the exact chemistry and exact mindset to do that, even if she was telling him something that he didn't like to hear.
Exactly. Like, he didn't like being told to take it easy, but I guess hearing it from her, like the way she said it, like, she wasn't belittling him. She wasn't, saying anything cruel to him. It was just, just relax. I got this. It's fine. You do what you got to do. It's fine. You're good.
Oh, and oh man, beautiful, beautiful scene that I remember is the part where Haddock opens up and actually cries and embraces Gray. And it's over what
I love that scene.
it's over what happened to his legs, how he lost the ability to walk, and how it was very specifically stated where it's like it wasn't Stonegate, it wasn't Mara, it wasn't for some reason. And I think again it was because of that stability that Gray added to everyone's lives that she interacted with. Haddock opened up to her during that crucial moment above anyone else. And even though it seemed sudden and unexpected, it also seemed incredibly in place.
It just felt like it, like when we were doing that thread, like it just felt like it flowed so naturally. Like like you said, it was unexpected, but at the same time it was like, no, this is what would happen. This is what would happen. These characters were real.
Yeah.
And they were actually going through this. And I love that scene so much. I'm not gonna lie. That's like one of my top favorite scenes in the RP.
It's gold. It's role play BotGD classic gold.
Good to know. And I just sorry, my throat. But yeah, like I said, I love that. Like it's just there's no action, there's no drama. Well, I mean, there's drama, but no craziness. It's just these two people talking.
Yeah.
And I think scenes like that in the RP were just amazing. Like, the action scenes were fun. Like, that was all in good fun. But, like, scenes where the characters just sat and talked and let the events sink in and, embracing each other, comforting each other, like, that was where the real development was. And I think that was huge development for both of them.
Yes, for sure.
For that scene.
So what would you say was your biggest learning experience because of Battle of the Ground and Dungeon as applied to real life?
Let me see. Well, I think part of it is the social aspect of it, because I'm not gonna lie, in the very beginning, like, I was very nervous about, interacting with people online, because I was like, oh, what if they don't like me? What if, what if somebody says something to me? And, but I was just like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta let your guard down a little bit, let people in. And I think it really helped me make a lot of online friends, especially you guys. I mean, you guys are like now my best internet friends ever.
Aww.
I talk to some people online, but I'm just like, but I know I always have you guys, like, no matter what.
Yeah. And that was shown. Ever since that Discord channel came up, I'm like, wow, everyone's here forever now.
Yeah, there's no one on who's going to come in and ruin it.
Oh my god, that was an adventure and a half trying to deal with.
Oof.
But go on.
That's okay. And then for my writing, I think it also helped my writing too. Like, writing fan fictions and all that, because I learned, like, I feel like I learned that it's okay to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
Something that may not, like, it's okay to cross that line. I mean, I think it was Cass who said it in his interview, like, there are some things that you can put in your writing and it's okay, but other things, it's maybe not touch that. And I feel like we all learned that as a whole. Like, there are some boundaries that you just can't cross.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me with my storytelling, my writing. Like, I've been writing nonstop ever since this whole RP started.
That is amazing.
So I think that really, yeah. Like I'm writing a frickin' one-shot series for Grey now.
Aw.
Basically, her first 21 years up until she leaves for the rebellion. So it's basically like her growing up, and like it's really, I feel like it's really helps like having the RP as like, okay, I know exactly where I want her to be. So how does she get to where she is?
I've actually been reading some of those, like when I was going through and doing the character edits for the, how do I put this? The fan fiction version of all of the threads. I remember going through and seeing a lot of the pages of these one shots with Grey. A couple of them, as I was going through to get to my character sections, I stopped to read, and they were really enjoyable. Again, it was that whole thing of like there was a solid background there that was very different than everyone else's, and yet at the same time, it still had the level of detail and care that I knew would lead to when it would produce the character of Grey that we know now, or that we were introduced to.
Right. Oh, thank you.
So I want to, of course. Oh no, I had a comment about the some things you can and some things you can't. That was always like it was both a line that was like strangely flexible in the strangest of places, and then absolutely rigid in others. Like, we would do things where everyone would sit there and go, "What the fuck?" And then universally be all like, "Yeah, okay, cool, keep it." but then there were other moments where something happened and we were like, "Delete the thread immediately." It's like we're not even doing trigger warning. We're not doing any. Get rid of it. And everyone was like, "Wow, shit, yeah, you're right. Get rid of it." And that was interesting.
I think there was one moment. I think that was when it first happened. Like, I think it was season 3 where that first happened. And I don't want to, name any names, but I think that for me, that's where I realized, like, okay, like we'll actually, like, it's good to actually take care of each other. Like, this is where our friendships come in, because we want to take care of each other, because the trigger warnings and all that.
Right.
So I think that also helped too. Like, we knew like what would set people off. But I kind of had that moment where, I think it was the end of season 5. It was right before we ended the main storyline, and it was where Grey goes to the MIDI trial, to get Shadow back, because he had turned the dragons against the humans, and of course that meant Shadow had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So she ends up sacrificing herself to save Shadow, and I just remember people being like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And people were like getting so upset, and the whole time I was messaging Kiri, because she and I had come up with that. Like, that would be a really good chance for Grey to get a moment to shine.
Oof.
And yeah, it was a pretty big moment, and everybody, I was like messaging Karen, like, oh my god, they're so upset, oh my god. And then like, I wanted to tell people, like, it's okay, she's gonna come back, she's fine, it's okay. But Kiri was like telling me, like, no, don't do that, you're gonna ruin it. So finally she did come back. It was like the biggest relief of my life, because everybody was like, oh, she's back now, okay, alright.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well, and it was the mark of how much people loved Grey, and also, oh man, there's so many different events. Like, okay, so you have the character who dies. Everyone is like, oh my god, no, and it's awful, but at the same time, you knew that the character was at its end. And then there were other characters where they seemingly died, and then it was like, boom, they come back. Classic BotGD style. And then there's other characters, it's like, we knew someone like that couldn't actually be dead kind of moment. And then there's moments where the person that couldn't actually be dead like that, quote unquote, does die. And I think an example is like, so for the first part, Kiri was always setting her character up to be a tragedy. And so even though when her death finally did come, it was heartbreaking and a surprise, it also wasn't contended. It was like, oh shit, it's the end.
Right.
And then you have moments where, like, with what you did with Gray in the MIDI trial, and with what Haddock did, making it look like that Dust had killed him, and then having them both come back, were those moments of, okay, cool, we knew they couldn't actually be dead. And then finally, the
Right.
last example has got to be of when Haddock informs everyone that Gareth bites the bullet at, like, age 60. Only, like,
Oh my gosh.
like a decade or, like, 2 decades after Battle of the Grounded Dungeon, the guy still has brown hair, and he gets his head cut off. And that's one of those moments where it was also like, oh no, this can't be true. And then it was. It was very, very true.
Yep.
But it
Yep.
set the
I remember that.
foundation for the rest of the story, though.
Yeah, little did we know it was gonna start. It was gonna frickin' start the sequel. Like, it started us doing EU threads. Like, and I think it also, like, really helped because it also got us thinking, like, huh, what would our character do 25 years later? Like,
Yeah.
what would my character do? So it was really interesting, but also, like, Haddock dying the way he did, it made sense for that character. Like, he's a fighter. He fights with swords. That's something that would happen.
And he also had a past that caught up to him. That element is why Stonegate is where he is now, where we are role-playing present day. He's in the middle of the I can't actually hold it against the people who killed Haddock for killing him because I killed people for even less situation. And it also set Gray up where it's like, yeah, you were second in command, and then yes, Haddock retired and gave you the rebellion and all that other stuff. But now, like,
he's in charge.
She's not just normal in charge, she's super in charge. Because Haddock isn't just retired, he's dead. And the entire system of Edgel being king and whether he's going to stay king and all of that is so fucking screwed up, it's literally happening not on the island. It's happening in an entirely different part of the nation. That crap getting sorted out, meaning that the entire weight of the rebellion is truly on Gray.
Yeah, and I think that's where, and on top of that, she's a mother. She's a chief of her own village. Like, she's got her own family to worry about. And then, of course, Sven gets kidnapped, so it's just even more stress. But it's just like, but the support system that she has now, and I think that's where, the first rebellion was her motivation to, kind of keep cool, but also, like, no, we're going to do this right. Like, she has, like, I kind of want her to have this motivation. Like, no, the rebellion was fine. The way Haddock led was fine, but it was also a way for her to learn from Haddock what not to do, in a sense. Like, she learned, like, okay, we need a strong support system, we need a base, we need strategies.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I like the idea of her telling her husband, like, no, we need to do this right. We need to do this the right way.
Right, no seat of the pants this time. Those days have gone by already.
Those days are over. No breakouts, no, just raids. That's it. That's what we're doing.
And I love how that, because it hasn't inhibited the roleplay at all. Like, everyone is still spontaneous, but there's an element of in-story security. Of it's like, okay, we're not breaking out of dungeons anymore. We are not electing clearly insane people, teenagers, to be the battle master. We are not having a myriad of other things going. We're not having Ragnarok happen. Yeah, it is super interesting to be able to roleplay and see everything that Gray has built under these parameters. And so since we're getting close to the end of the podcast, not quite. But so those are like the main 6 questions that I had, and usually I throw in a few personalized questions as well, which I thought of some as we were getting here. But I don't really have any written right now because I just rolled out of bed. But so what I do want to see if you want to talk about, I kind of want to talk about, so it's on verbal record, the alternate universe, which I very much believe exists, where Gray is the one who faces off with Orskov in the first battle of Ragnarok.
As I would love that.
Give me your thoughts.
Say that again?
I said, give me your thoughts.
Okay. I think that if it wasn't Haddock, then definitely Gray is definitely a candidate, and I definitely a candidate to. Oops, sorry. Hang on.
Oh no.
Turn up the phone. I think that Gray is definitely the person. Well, first of all, I remember, when you guys were planning that, I remember everybody saying, don't go near Orskov, don't go near Orskov, and I was just like, I just remember thinking, like, I kind of want her to face off with him, like, I want her to go after the big bad, like, that'd be so amazing. And then finally Haddock does it, and I'm just like, okay, that's why we weren't allowed.
There was also another reason. I had it in my head that there was only three characters who were gonna be able to take him out. And it was Haddock, it was you, and it was the Warden. I very much have it in my mind that either the Warden finds Orskov in the battlefield and literally rips him to pieces, or there's the face-off. Right. Or there's the face-off between Gray and Haddock. And the reason I kind of put it out there for a lot of people to not get near him is that, for one thing, I didn't want Orskov to have endless fighting and then withdrawing scenes from people. Whoever he fought, he was gonna have to kill or be killed by. And since there were only a small handful of people that were gonna kill him, that was a lot of characters that could have potentially been killed right there by him. And I knew that wasn't right. I knew it wasn't gonna fly. I wasn't gonna be able to butcher another third of the rebellion. So that was a mean comment.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So I was just like, don't go near him. But no, quite honestly, I am such a fan of the idea of Gray and Orskov facing off.
Oh, I freaking love it. I freaking love it because, I love how you said that she's one of the ones who could beat him because it kind of makes sense. Like she's
with a W.
She would beat him.
She would beat him.
Yeah. Thank you. Because it makes sense because it's like she had, I like to think as, Haddock obviously has more experience than her in terms of sword fighting and, fighting in general. But, she's trained with her father. I had it as she trained with her father from when she was a kid. So she could hold her own in battle. But I love the idea of, and I'm glad we did this in that one thread, that flashback thread, that she was faced with the idea of killing somebody, which is, another part of her character arc. But I like the idea of her, Orskov, and having no choice but to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And because it's either that, because, I like seeing her think like, well, it's either this or I die. And I don't want to die. Oh, crap, I gotta kill him. Like, oh, man. So I like the idea, and I'm glad we did that in that one flashback that we did, because it's like, that helped her face that, and it adds more to her character, especially where she is now.
Right, because Gray isn't out there killing a bunch of people, but, like, it either would have happened with the fight with Orskov, or it happened, as we did with the flashback with Forrestal, where, he's laying there dying, and he's basically like, you got lucky, because you spent that whole fight not actually trying to kill us, and you paid dearly for it. You're injured. Your dragon's injured. And it's like, you are injured, and your friend is injured because of you and your decisions. You knew that we were going to kill you, and you didn't fight back with the same... You didn't even fight back to really preserve your own life. That's the problem. And yet, at the same time, he was, like, super impressed, because she took out all of them. Even though she was fighting like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so...
And I think that kind of...
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nope, you go.
Okay. I think that helped her realize, like, no, I can't just go in blindly with this. Like, I gotta be a little bit more careful.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, this happens right before Haddock gets paralyzed. So, I think that's a good lead-in to her eventually taking over the rebellion. Like, her realizing, like, okay, I gotta be more careful. I can't just go in blindly to fights like this. Like, because these people do want to kill me.
Yeah, and some of them won't stop. Like, all of them were trained, like, even if they were injured and taken out, that they still go and try to... because it's the end of the world. You're either claiming the soul, or you're literally in hot water with a god. So it's like, what you gonna do? You're gonna have to fight.
You have no choice.
But, so I always loved the examples of strength, like physical strength, that Grey always possesses. And I think that is one of the things that would just be... I have this, like, image in my head of how I imagine it would go. Grey and Orskov are fighting. It's clear she's trying to incapacitate him or outdo him so that he surrenders, and he's there for blood. And I always have this idea in my mind that's like, so he injures her, and immediately her arm comes around and socks him right in the solar plex. And he's just like, the thing that goes through his mind is, what the fuck, as he like backs up, because he was not expecting someone with that level of strength coming out of someone like Grey, because Grey, at least to Orskov, always looked like someone who would slip through the woodwork. No one who was distinct, no one who was noticeable, no one who had anything to make them stick out at all. That's how he would kind of see her, as just any other soldier. He wouldn't even really see her as the chief. He simply wouldn't recognize it. And especially when he... Right. Go ahead.
You think of that one scene where he comes to the dungeon and she's confronting him, and he's just, she's just like, I'm the second in command, you have to, I'm Haddock's second in command, like, back off. And he's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's because she wasn't important to him, but I think, like, the moment in the battle, especially when she would get a hit on him, and that would parallel what happens with him and Haddock, because with him and Haddock, he's fighting, and the actual winning shot in that scene is early on in the fight when Haddock cuts Orskov just slightly into his ribs on his side. And that was the shot that was placed there because of Haddock's superior swordsmanship, and it was the shot that made Orskov to start to lose blood, and it was honestly the shot that killed him before he realized that he had been killed. And then the whole, fight goes on from there, but it's at that moment that Orskov, like, actually looks at Haddock and addresses him by name, because he suddenly meant something to him. And I think the same thing would happen with Grey. Grey would get... Well, I just imagine, instead of, like, a sword cut, she would just wallop him. Like, he injures her, she has a moment of it's me or him, and just wallops him right in the chest.
Just
sends him staggering back, wheezing, making him think, like, well, how the heck did that... I had no idea. And that would be it. He would have the thought of, I had no idea she was that strong. And that would be the moment that he would not only be trying to kill her, which would never change, but it would be serious after that. It wouldn't just be a fight. It would be someone that actually went and pinged off his radar.
Oh my god. That would be amazing. Like, and I just imagine her being like, I could just imagine seeing him look at her and her being like, there's a lot of things you don't know about me. And then she would just freaking, I don't know, she would just throw herself at him and force him to the ground and just, deliver the final blow.
Right.
And then, I could see her, like, staggering back, like, wait, what did I just do?
Right. It's interesting how it could go either way.
Right.
And it's interesting that she would have the thought of, what did I just do? Even though she didn't even cut him, she would have just, like hit him at that point.
Right. And I think even that would be a good moment for her to realize, like, oh, I should be defending myself. Like, I can defend myself. He's weak. I just freaking punch this guy.
Right.
Okay, this changes the game.
And like also like the eye opener, like with the injury of, oh wow, like I'm hurt.
This is war.
I'm not going to be able to fight as well. This injury is going to kill me if I don't treat it, and that's provided I survive the fight with him in general.
Exactly. And then that's what gives her more motivation. Like, oh, I gotta keep going. Like I can't
really defend yourself, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like I can't just mess around.
Yeah. And you're right. And it's not like a pro killing message where it's like, yeah, get out there and kill your enemies. It's like, no. Just have the idea that, like, I'm a self-defense nut. It's like I love all things involving that, and a lot of people don't want to hurt people, and that's their choice. That's fine, but especially if you're like in a war or you find yourself in a battle, it's not about putting the killing on someone. It's about defending yourself to the fullest. It's not shortchanging your own life just because you're concerned about someone who's actively trying to take away your life. And so like in the Haddock fight, the two end where both of them are so exhausted. Like Orskov, I think, puts Haddock in a catatonic state. But he's lost so much blood and he is so beaten up. He eventually finds himself just standing over Haddock. A part of him doesn't want to kill him because he's curious, but honestly, he probably couldn't have even if he wanted to. He was so weak. He couldn't even pick up a sword. He couldn't muster enough of a punch to kill him. He couldn't put his arms around his neck and be strong enough to kill in that way either. And so he just kind of walks away and sits down to rest. And then, he wakes up and he realizes that Haddock has the knife. He realizes that he hasn't gotten any strength because he's been bleeding, and he tries to get away, and he knows it's over, and he's getting killed. With the fight with Gray, I imagined it would be a kind of thing where Gray has that moment of, I need to really fight, and they clash again, and in the middle of it, almost like in the middle of a sentence almost, Orskov's feet get swept out from under him, and suddenly he's holding the tip of Gray's blade just above his face, and she's, like, trying to drive it down. I think we talked about it in a chat.
I think we did.
Because I was like, how would this actually end?
And to try to force it down, and then, of course you have him struggling, trying to hold it back, but she's just so much stronger than him, and she just...
Yeah, I always imagine that the blade would, his hands would go straight up the blade as it was pushed through the length, through his closed fingers, cutting the inside of his hand and everything as it was doing so, and just going into his face. Like, I imagine the blade sinking into his cheekbone and going straight through. And that's interesting. Like, a character death doesn't, like, usually when I have a character death, there's very something clear in my head. But very seldom do I have distinct deaths that I would consider canon in their own universe for the same character. And that was one of the ones with Orskov. There was something very fitting with how Haddock pushed the knife through Orskov's teeth and into his mouth before cutting it down into his neck. And then there's also something very fitting about Gray just straight up stabbing him straight through the face.
Because it just feels right.
Don't know why, but it does.
Yeah.
Is that morbid?
Yeah, I could totally see that happening.
Is that too morbid?
I can totally see that happening. No.
I was gonna say, I take my character deaths very seriously.
Hey, it's how they go out. It's like Game of Thrones. Like want a way for the characters to go out, but you also want it to be in a way where people are going to feel sad if it's a character that they like, but also feel satisfied. Like, okay, this is how they would go out.
Yeah, this is good on all ways, kind of thing.
Right. I mean, I have Gray die in old age when she's like 98 years old, just in her sleep with Shadow by her side, and it's sad, but it's like, you know what? This is how it would happen. This is, this feels satisfying in a way. Someone who loves Gray would look at it and be like, okay, she had a moment of peace.
And for someone who lived their life the way Gray did, it works so well. Like, because like Haddock, he, as a teenager, murdered a bunch of innocent merchants. And then decades later, that same event that they never got justice for caught up to him and he got his head cut off. Stonegate spent most of his young adult life finding excuses to murder people and found every justification in the world for it. And at the tail end of his life, he just gets fucked up by an arrow.
And that's protecting the king of the Wilder West.
He wasn't, I mean, yeah, he was on job, but it was someone out to kill him, not even attack the king.
Okay.
Yeah, someone, right,
I gotta reread that.
Right, his past caught up to him in a sense, like, that's one of those threads where it's like, I'd like to explore a little more into that, a little more fully, but the general idea is that, for once, even though he's the bodyguard, someone targets him specifically.
Oh,
and,
interesting.
And shoots and kills him in the middle of his life, basically. He's like 70 or something like that. So in the middle, right, in the middle of his life and what he's doing, it's snatched away, just like what he did to at least 2 other older men who were in the same situation. Because it's like, I know everyone hates Orskov and everything like that, but at the bottom line, when Stonegate first killed Orskov, it really was a delusional old man who he could have walked away from. Like, point blank. But he chose not to because he wanted to kill him. And so...
Right.
So, but then you have Grey, where she went so far out of her way to bring stability and a sense of home and order and companionship to everyone that she worked with in the rebellion, didn't go out of her way, avoided violence at all costs, did her duty without being a dick about it. And it's just like, if anyone deserved a life at the end of that, I like to see how these characters are ending their lives the way they lived them.
And it just kind of brings it full circle, too. Like, the way Haddock went out, the way Stonegate goes out, and the way she goes out. Because it's like, she... And I don't know, I feel like a part of it, I feel like, I don't know if I'm sorry if I'm speaking for your muse, but...
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I like the idea of Hel being like, you know what, she spent her whole life being a good person, this is what she deserves. She deserves this.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm sure Hel would be thinking that, but as I have the character set up, it's less about anything that Hel would orchestrate, and more of what Grey orchestrated herself. Because
interesting.
She, they say the phrase, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Grey didn't live by the sword. At any point in her life, even when she had to fight to the death with someone, she didn't live by the sword. So I feel like Hel didn't have to do anything. Hel was sitting up there going, Grey is setting herself up for a nice death in her bed at 98 with Shadow by her side. Because that's how she's living life. Whereas she was looking at characters like Stonegate and Haddock going, you boys are fucking up. That's gonna catch up with you. I'm telling you right now. It's like,
Be careful, and then...
It's like, don't you complain to me when all of this goes south. You decided to do this.
She's like the parent who's just like, I tried to warn you. Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe a meaner parent, because she's not even warning them either. She's really letting everyone make their own beds. Hel and Grey. Alright, so we're over the hour marker, but I do have to touch on this real quick. Hel and Grey.
Oh, my God.
Okay. One of my favorite things of rereading the old stuff, because one of the first encounters Grey has with Hel straight up makes water pour out of every orifices of Grey's body, which doesn't hurt her, but is nonetheless traumatizing. She straight up does something horrible.
I honestly wish I, added more to that. I honestly wish I had her think back on that, oh crap. I don't know if I wanted her to be traumatized, but oh my God.
It was
she was being a little shit.
Yeah, no, so then that was the thing I was reading. I was looking at him going, what is with Hel right now? And how did this change? And it was one of those things where it was revealed later where I'm looking and I'm going, oh, that's why she was scared. Hell was scared for the entirety of the first few Actually, Hell was scared for the entirety of BotGD 1. She was scared about losing the war. She was scared about permanently losing all of the souls. She was scared about what would happen in the hands of Loki or even the well-meaning Odin or something like that. And because of that, like a lot of people who were scared and upset and stressed out, she started acting like a bitch. Like, super sassy, and just like, and kind of falling back into that old way of behaving. Because go figure, her dad is Loki. So when she really gets a bug in her butt, that kind of comes out. She gets very snarky and mean and vindictive towards humans. Like, she straight up torments Stonegate. She straight up does the whole water thing with Grey. She does a lot of, or like demands these like gaudy, arbitrary tributes when someone pissed her off and they're like, but we still need your help, and she's like, fine, then like, I don't know, burn a bunch of food or something, I don't care.
And you have Grey being over there like, what the
exactly, Grey is sitting there like, what is with this person?
What is wrong with you? And I think it was kind of interesting for me as a nun, because like, you know, I'm Catholic, so like I'm used to this loving, you know, learning about this loving God, you know, someone who's very forgiving, and then of course you have Hell.
Right.
Because I was just like, oh, okay.
And
so you can imagine for me, I was just like, oh, all right then.
It was one of those things where it's like, Hell is a hero entirely interpreted by the person who perceives her character. Like, to an nth degree. Because she was worried about losing all the souls, sure. She wanted to make it so that all the humans could live independently and live their own lives, sure. And that they didn't end up in a screwed up afterlife system, sure. I think everyone can agree that is a good thing. But what she did was completely dominate, bully, and bulldoze everyone, deity, human, and otherwise, in her way, and then lashed out at petty stuff to make sure that that got done. And it's interesting because Grey was the one who caught so much of the brunt of that, because Grey was the one who was constantly like, wait, no, this is not cool. I don't care about how grand of a scheme things are. I don't care that there's a war-ending world, there's a world-ending war on the line. I don't care about that. You're making us fight in a giant battle, and you're acting like a little shit. Why would we listen to you?
And why should, it's like that? I think she even says that. It's like, why should we work with you? Like, what is wrong with you?
And Hell's thinking like, oh, woe is me, why can't they see, how don't they notice that their land has been blessed, even though they're ragtag rebels held up in some ice fortress, they still have all the food supplies and all this fresh water, don't they realize how I gave people back from the dead, and don't they realize it's like, well, no, they wouldn't realize that, because you were acting like a little shit. Because you were having fun acting like a little shit. And you suddenly realized that this wasn't any good when you realized it didn't benefit you. Hell was shaking off her old god, so to speak, throughout that whole series. And Grey was one of the people that really made her realize that. When Grey ripped into her that one time, right after she took Greg, that was truly one of the moments where Hell was like, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing factually. If I'm acting like a dick while doing it, it doesn't matter to them. And as a god, that made no sense to her, but that was finally the moment where it made sense when she empathized with the humans that were on Earth.
Oh, yeah. And then that's what eventually led to her putting them in the bunker.
Towards
the end.
Yes. Right. She was originally going to have them just keep fighting, but she realized she had enough people that she could do a fresh regiment per fight and not have everyone go through a horrible battle like that more than once.
And even then, like, I think, you know, Grey would have eventually come to realize this herself. Like, if they had kept fighting, they would have lost.
Yes.
Or, you know, they probably would have won, but they would have been hammered hard.
The first regiment of the Grounded Dungeon would have been completely eradicated.
They would not have made it.
No. And that was the thing, because Hell very much favors the grounded dungeon. She wanted that line of people to survive. She wanted that lineage to continue. But it also, because of Grey's scrutiny of what Hell is doing, it's what changed Hell's plan from... Because Hell would have just kept going. It's like, fight, 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 go, go, go. It won't matter if you die, I'll reincarnate you, whatever. And Grey was the one who's like, hey, the big picture...
You can't do this.
The big picture is not... Ends do not always justify the means. And that's what really gave Hell the idea of, hey, they fight once, the next group of people will fight once. And I think what eventually...
That makes sense.
This wasn't written, but it was kind of in the back of my mind that because she only had people fight once, she actually does run out of people prior to anyone else. But that's when she just puts everyone underground and just takes it herself. Which leads into her battle with Fenrir and everything like that, which damn near destroys the world and turns her into a chewed bloody mess. But yeah, so yeah, Grey was very... Grey, it's so cool. Grey not only influenced the king, but she also influenced the deity of that land as well. Which is just super cool. Which is just...
She will just shut it down.
And so... Because now we got in BotGD 2, where Hell is very much working on her being neutral, not being so savage, because she's secure in what she's doing. She's not super worried about stuff. And that's actually a plotline I plan to do. I need to finish up Renko first, but I got some more lighthearted fun stuff that involves Hell to follow.
Okay.
But,
okay.
But, so, Hell has never forgotten those conversations with Grey. Hell has never stopped. At this point, Hell very much regrets doing some of the shitty stuff she did to Stonegate and to Grey. Even though a part of her still like, yeah, well, I'm a god and they're fine, kind of deal. She's still doing that, but she still very much regrets it, and I think that's one of the, like, at the end of the story in BotGD 1, she's like, hey, I'm taking a big step back because I can't get this right. The best thing I can do is to try to make it so that you guys are safe and have you choose your own destiny, because I realize that I'm going to be inadequate. I'm going to do this very poorly because I'm such a sassy monster.
I would actually love to see Hell and Grey, like, talk in the sequel now. Like, this is Grey, like, 25 years later. She's a mother now. She's grown up. She's learned the things she's learned. So that would be an interesting conversation between the two of them.
It would be, and I am completely open to it. If you send me a Discord message about, the parameters of a thread like that, I would be happy to check that out. Because it's been a while since I got to RP Hell. Since we had a break, it'd be fun to dust her back off and have at it again. It's always fun.
We gotta get back into it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Grey, I think that comes the conclusion of this interview. So I want to thank you again for doing this with me. It was a pleasure.
No problem.
Maybe one day we'll be able to have a part 2 if we think of enough material to rant and obsess over. And
of course.
In the time being, this has been In the Dungeon. I think that's what I named the podcast. And yes, there's no outro either. There just isn't one. I'd never bothered to think of one. And I'm not going to put the energy into this recording to think of one now.
That's okay. There's a first time for everything.